Hello and welcome. You're watching India Today Global and I'm Geeta Mohan. Tremors of the Modi-Xi-Putin meet on the sidelines of the SCO summit have shaken the power center in Washington, D.C. U.S. President Donald Trump has fired off a fresh barb on social media saying America has lost India and Russia to darkest China. India's reply, pure diplomatic coup. So while Trump sees loss, India is playing its own global game, engaging Washington, D.C., Moscow and Beijing on its own terms. Here's a report.
Days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping were seen sharing laughs and bonhomie on the sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin, sending a strong message to the West. U.S. President Donald Trump has fired off a fresh barb on social media, saying that America lost India and Russia to China. In a post on Truth Social, Trump wrote, and I quote, "Looks like we have lost India and Russia to deepest, darkest China. May they have a long and prosperous future together," unquote. The remark was widely seen as a sarcastic swipe at the growing bonhomie among the three leaders. But this is not the first time Trump took a dig at the Tianjin bonhomie. Trump has been posting furiously ever since the Tianjin Troika met. This traces back to when India was first hit by Trump's 50% trade tariff. Since then, he has repeatedly taken to social media over the issue. While Trump claimed that India had agreed to slash tariffs to nothing and warned that time was running out for a deal, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal recently confirmed in an interview to India Today television that a trade agreement with the U.S. is in fact underway.
There will be occasions when there may be certain blips in the relationship, but I think it's a very, very consequential, very strong relationship. It can weather many storms and will continue to be a very strategic friendship, a very important relationship. We'll continue to grow together. We'll continue to have a lot of business to do together.
अभी कुछ ही मिनट पहले अमेरिकी राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का एक ट्वीट आया है, एक पोस्ट उन्होंने किया है सोशल मीडिया.
Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs replied in a pure diplomatic way and refrained from commenting directly on Trump's latest remarks.
Regarding the post, I have no comments to offer on this post at this point.
However, MEA spokesperson Randeep Jaiswal sharply hit back at Trump's top aide and White House trade advisor Peter Navarro, who has repeatedly made anti-India remarks. Jaiswal termed Navarro's statements inaccurate and misleading.
We have seen the inaccurate and misleading statements made by Mr. Navarro, and obviously we reject them.
Navarro had earlier labelled the Russia-Ukraine conflict as Modi's war, accused India of acting as a laundromat for the Kremlin, and even called Modi's Tianjin visit as a shame. The repeated attacks from Trump and his aides clearly reflect U.S. unease with India's firm and independent foreign policy stance. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me to discuss this and more is Rick Sanchez, veteran American journalist, traveled the world, has interviewed a lot of people. Rick, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Now, what we're seeing in the SCO summit, was a very important event, but the picture, if only pictures could talk. What do you make of the reaction that has come from Donald Trump from Washington, D.C. first, and then we'll take it from there. What's your first reaction to the photograph that Donald Trump has posted and reacted to?
Well, it's not surprising. In fact, this is the game plan Mr. Trump often engages in. He's hot, he's cold. One day he loves you, one day he hates you. He is finding ways, though, to make people react in two ways, I think, around the world. Number one is confusion. And if you're a real businessman or woman, you would know that the last thing you ever want to do to a market is confuse it. There has to be consistency of messaging. And the messaging that's coming out of these days from the United States is so incredibly confusing that it leaves people wondering whether they should act on it or just ignore it. And what most people are choosing to do is usually ignore it. From a business standpoint. From a geopolitical standpoint, what that causes is for people to look to other places. And that's what we saw happening with the Shanghai summit. By the way, I should mention the other thing that obviously with Mr. Trump's messaging that happens is, countries are like people. We all have feelings, right? And when you feel insulted, you don't exactly want to pick up the phone and call that person. Maybe that's why Mr. Modi reportedly ignored 4 of Mr. Trump's phone calls, because other suitors are now saying to Mr. Modi, look, don't feel bad that the United States doesn't want to be your friend. We'll be your friend. China's literally saying to India, if you can look at things, from on the world stage this way, like, look, we'll be your friend. We'll be your business partners. We'll buy your products. We'll share rare earth minerals with you. We'll exchange flights. We'll solve the problem in the Himalayan border. Let's just get together and we'll do for each other what you were hoping the United States would do for you that you no longer trust the United States will do.
Right.
It's almost as simple as that, isn't it, Geeta?
Well, Rick, I do see that Trump is absolutely rattled. Relations that India has with Russia is very different from relations that India has with China. Having said that, let's talk about the doublespeak of Washington first, and then we'll talk about the rest. It's okay for President Trump to go and meet President Putin. It's also okay for him to be engaging Beijing for trade talks, and they probably could be concluding a trade deal much before India does. It's also okay then for President Trump to invite President Xi Jinping for a summit-level meeting. But it's not okay for Modi to be meeting these very same leaders. Doublespeak.
It's almost funny, isn't it? I can do it, but you can't do it. It makes absolutely no sense. I think you mentioned at the beginning when you were introducing the topic, you mentioned the word jealousy, and it almost comes across that way. I think for Mr. Trump, things are often very personal, and he thinks that only he should be able to have these types of relationships, and only he should be able to choose where those relationships go. But can I share something with you from a personal standpoint? I was thinking about yesterday. I was on a plane yesterday on Aeroflot, no less, a Russian airline coming back from Beijing to Moscow, and I started thinking about this. What a shame that the United States is self-isolating. Think about that word, self-isolating. Here is, arguably one of the greatest countries in the world in so many ways. Great people, great system, a great constitution, and some great leaders in the past, and still some great leaders. And as a result of that, the world, including your country, have for many years wanted to be close to the United States. They reached out. We want to be a part of your world. We want to be a part of it. So did Russia. So what I saw, and when I was in China, I saw the same thing. China has tried to embrace the United States in so many ways. And Russia, by far, tried to embrace the United States in so many ways. Just go to Moscow. You hear Russian music in the malls. You see children are taught English in the schools. A lot of things that they do here in Russia to embrace the United States. And but now, because of the self-isolation, because of the way the United States, through the Biden years and now through the Trump years, has kicked in the teeth the Russians and now the Indians and obviously the Chinese with the tariffs, those countries are saying, you know what? On Aeroflot Airlines, we used to play American movies. No more. I was like angry because as an American citizen, I wanted to watch an American movie. There was not a lot of American movies. There was not anything on the menu that was American. You go to stores and you're not seeing American products.
Right.
There's this thing happening in the world. Sure, you and I are paid to figure it out from a large geopolitical macro level, how countries behave, but it goes beyond countries. It goes to culture, and it goes to the fact that people in these parts of the world are now going to look to each other. People in India will now fly on vacation to go to different parts of China that they maybe wouldn't have in the past.
Right, Rick, exactly what I've been saying. You know, China, every time I say China is still important, I used to receive brickbats. I'd be told that I'm anti-national or I'm not looking at India, oh, you don't know how the real world works. But look, I'd always say wait and watch, and look what's happening over here. Let's not put everything in the American basket. And I can tell you one thing, I'm going to steal one line of yours where you're talking about America's self-isolation. What a way to put things in perspective on what is really happening. Now, what is really happening is America's foreign policy unraveling because of Trump, Rick.
Yeah, of course. And what's worse is some of the things that we were just talking about. And by the way, you're right. And I've spoken to a lot of my Indian colleagues who have told me the same thing. And don't count your chickens before they're hatched. The China-India relationship is better, but there's still some hurdles to overcome. And I understand that. And there's going to be hurdles to overcome in many different geopolitical spheres and relationships. But this is the door is being opened. Whether either side walks in is another question, but the door is being opened, and the person who's holding the door open is Donald Trump. Donald Trump is literally telling Russia, we don't want to be your friends. Go be friends with China. You want a friend? Go talk to China. He's telling Modi, you want a friend? Go talk to Xi. You know, I mean, it's remarkable to me that they don't understand. If you just measure the metrics, the GDP growth, standing armies, population size, I could go on and on and on. The list is vast. And if you do this, measurement, and if you look at these metrics, what you find out is these countries that are coming together at this summit that I was covering for the last 5 or 6 days and have just returned from, are potentially by coming together much more powerful than the G7 is, and much more powerful than any union of Western countries, including Washington. And if Mr. Trump, or worse, the people who are in Mr. Trump's ear, you know, the military contractors and the people who make money from aggression, who love when we're in an aggressive stance with any of these countries, don't see that, they're either stupid or they're simply cynical and don't want to see it because they fear that if Mr. Trump finds out about that, he might not be as aggressive, and all those people are not going to be able to make money off of the Ukraines of the world and other conflicts that we've engaged in simply because we wanted to make money and not because they did anything at all for the people of the United States. In fact, I would argue that any of these conflicts that we've been in for the past 20 years have done nothing but lessen the condition of the American public. And I can say the same thing for the British and the French and the Germans.
Right. Rick Sanchez, thank you so much for joining us here on the network. Thank you. While there are war of words that we see between the West and India and the East, here's my take on how India has options, saying it loud and clear to the United States of America that India is not alone. You can watch the entire show on India Today Global's YouTube channel, but here is an excerpt. Take a look. Trump fires it off on Truth Social within days of the SCO summit. The sarcasm can't hide the sting. Everyone in Washington, D.C. seems to be whispering the same thing. Mend the rift with India before it's too late. Former national security heavyweights Jake Sullivan and Kurt Campbell are already sounding the alarm, spelling out why a formal US-India alliance is indispensable in a turbulent world. Yet Trump, instead of grasping the moment, has doubled down on his 50% tariffs and public jabs at New Delhi, treating the world's largest democracy like just another trade opponent. India, meanwhile, isn't standing still. Modi's summitry with Xi and Putin, his handshake optics at the SCO, and his renewed Eurasian charm offensive are unmistakable signals of a pivot. If Trump keeps sulking, the world's most sought-after swing state could simply move on. The real question is, what are India's options if the US president won't budge? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Trump's furious Truth Social post landed like an accidental confession, fired off just days after the 2025 SCO summit, where Modi, Putin, and Xi appeared unusually warm. It summed up the fallout of his own policies: 50% tariffs on Indian goods, public digs over discounted Russian oil, and an erratic diplomatic style that cooled US-India ties and nudged New Delhi toward visible multi-alignment. For US analysts, it was proof he'd pushed India closer to China and Russia. For Modi, it was a vindication of strategic autonomy. For Putin, a chance to call US tactics colonial. The tweet's sarcasm couldn't hide the shift. A White House watching its leverage over two Eurasian powers slip, while India doubles down on sovereign, diversified partnerships in SCO, BRICS, and beyond. Sullivan and Campbell have already mapped a path out of this mess: a 10-year, 5-pillar alliance spanning technology, trade, defense, intelligence, and global problem-solving. They warn that tariffs and pressure over India's regional choices are eroding goodwill, and that letting disputes fester will cost Washington far more than coordination ever would. Yet while they argue for alignment without sacrificing sovereignty, Trump is broadcasting frustration on Truth Social and calling India's relationship totally one-sided. With Prime Minister Modi visiting Beijing and Moscow, buying Russian oil, and reopening trade with China, the stakes are obvious. Will India keep waiting or start hedging hard? Trump's tantrum is toxic. He built the tariffs, then built a narrative of betrayal. He calls India totally one-sided but ignores the US tech giants building fortunes on Indian markets. He forgets that every time a Quad summit photo goes viral, it's India standing beside America, not China. He forgets that every American president since Clinton tried to build trust, not break it. Instead, he treats India like another NAFTA fight. And India, it's already evaluating its options. Modi's Eurasian power play is deliberate. SCO 2025 was his stage. No more waiting, no more hoping for a US reset. Direct flights to China rebooted. Border heat dipped. Terror got front and center. Modi called out Pakistan with precision, uniting SCO on anti-terror messaging. India doubled down on Russia, buying discounted oil, pushing connectivity corridors, boosting BRICS engagement. Every move was bold, purposeful. The message: India doesn't wait for others to give it space. It carves its own. Strengthening ties with Russia and China gives leverage. It counters US dominance. It secures cheap energy. It accelerates infrastructure and tech. But it's not romance, it's math. China's economic weight and distrust, border tensions, Pakistan entanglements. This is a tightrope walk. Depend too much on Moscow or Beijing, and India risks becoming a junior partner in a cornered bloc. Weak links, crisis exposure, loss of autonomy. The more India rises, the more everyone wants a piece. Pressure from Beijing, expectations from Washington, demands from Moscow, offers from Europe. At some point, hedging turns into overextension. The real test is whether India can convert this moment of leverage into lasting power. Infrastructure, technology, military, influence, so that when it finally has to choose, it chooses from a position of strength. Trump could help that process and secure a partner for decades, or he can keep swinging the wrecking ball and watch India step into a different orbit. The choice isn't India's alone, it's his. That's the story the photos from the SCO told. Modi between Xi and Putin, Modi leading anti-terror talk, Modi pitching development banks, Washington absent, Trump angry. For Indian viewers, it was a moment of pride. For American strategists, it was a warning. For China and Russia, it was an opportunity. If Trump's circle really believes tariffs are leverage, they should study Indian history. Every time a great power tried to squeeze India, India found a workaround. Colonial tariffs, Cold War sanctions, post-Pokhran restrictions. Every squeeze produced self-reliance and new partners. This squeeze will too. The closing beat is simple. India doesn't wait, it doesn't beg, it calculates, it moves, it hedges, it builds. If Trump wants a partner, he has to act like one. If he doesn't, India will write its own script with Eurasia, with the Global South, with whoever offers respect instead of rage. The world's largest democracy has options. The question is whether Washington still does. Thank you for watching Statecraft. At Donald Trump's high-stakes dinner with America's biggest tech bosses, Tesla and SpaceX chief Elon Musk was missing despite being invited. Why did the world's richest man skip a showcase of power and pledges? Our next report unpacks this.
Elon Musk's empty chair was the most talked about guest at Donald Trump's glittering White House tech dinner. Donald Trump's carefully choreographed tech dinner had all the right names and one glaring absence. Tesla and SpaceX boss Elon Musk, the man who once symbolized Trump's push for futuristic America, had been invited, confirmed on X that a representative would attend and then stayed away himself. This was no ordinary dinner. It was a showcase of Trump's grip on Silicon Valley powerhouses from Sundar Pichai to Satya Nadella, Mark Zuckerberg, Tim Cook, Bill Gates and Sam Altman. 5 Indian origin CEOs were on hand. Each was grilled by Trump on one thing: how many billions they were investing in America. Musk, though, stayed away, and that absence spoke louder than any pledge. His relationship with Trump has soured since his exit from the administration. He has criticized Washington over public spending and the Epstein files and floated the idea of a new America party to break away from the two-party stranglehold. Thursday's dinner, heavy on praise and checkout diplomacy, was a stage Musk clearly did not want to share. On X he posted, "I was invited, but unfortunately could not attend. A representative of mine will be there." Polite words masking a clear distance. For a man who thrives on spectacle, skipping a front-page event at the White House was a calculated move, a way to underline that he is no longer part of Trump's inner circle. Was it just scheduling or a deliberate show of distance? Is Musk still orbiting Trump's universe or plotting his own entirely? With Rishika Aradhya, India Today Global.
A magnitude of 5.6 on the Richter scale earthquake struck Afghanistan's remote southeastern region, the third quake in 6 days as the death toll from the first continued to rise. The shallow quake hit at 8:56 p.m. local time and sent people in Nangarhar and Kunar provinces scampering out of their shelters in fear. Sunday's quake has already killed more than 1,000 people and wounded 2,180. That's all in this edition of India Today Global.